Hello, my name's Rob and welcome to Swift Slots. Now, when I started this YouTube channel, I also opened a Facebook page at the same time, and I only ever used to use that Facebook page to upload new videos. It was all a little bit pointless and I couldn't really understand what the point of having the page was because there wasn't a lot going on. If you've subscribed to me on this YouTube channel, you'll know what the videos are coming anyway, and you don't really need to be on the Facebook page. Until the other month, and I thought, do you know what? I could get more out of this Facebook page. I could talk to you guys directly. I could show you projects that are coming. I could ask you what projects you would like me to do. And I could also show you behind the scenes work that I'm doing and so on. So the other week, I actually asked you, now the TR7 is finished, what car would you like me to do next? And there were obviously a range of ideas, but the car that kept on coming back to me, and indeed in the comments below in other videos, is this, the Ford RS200. And I thought that is a good project. Now the intention in my mind was just to make it go faster, so there's no paintwork, it's just creating a new 3D printed chassis to go on this car to turn it into something much better than it was. Now this is actually a very special thing to me because this was one of my first cars that I had in my early 20s, so it'd been about 1990, 1992, and at that time this car was brand new and it really was a better car than anything else that I had. So I remember this car very well and very fondly. So as soon as it came up again in that Facebook page, I thought, yeah, that's a car that I really would want to do. And if you recall, about, I don't know, maybe 6 months ago, going back in these videos, I actually bought one of these and I showed it to you as what I bought in for future projects. The trouble is though, with that car, it was so nice that I couldn't do anything with it, and that is indeed this car. And as you can see, it's all in its box and it's absolutely pristine. And I showed it on the channel and I said, I can't do this, it's just so nice, I can't bear to pull it apart. So I kind of didn't, and I did kind of put a veiled sort of ask out to you guys if anybody wants to sell me one that's not quite as good as this one. I would then do it, and nothing came back, so this one just stayed in my collection looking very, very pretty until you commented on my Facebook page. So I went straight to eBay, as I often do, and I found a nice one that I didn't need to paint, but one that I could actually really give it some welly around the track. So if it did come off, I wasn't going to scratch it or break it. I had nothing really to lose on that car. So that's what this video is all about. It's simply getting that eBay car and then running it around the track and seeing if we can get a lot more out of it than standard. It's not about paintwork or anything like that in this video. So we obviously need a benchmark to see what sort of time a standard Scalextric RS200 will go around to Crow Valley. So we are going to run my absolutely pristine car, and it's absolutely as standard, so it'll give a really good idea of how fast we can get one to go around the track. So let's go around the track, see what sort of time this car will put down, and we'll get on the bench and I'll show you all the parts that I've got for the Project RS200. Okay, so let's start by slipping in a Hot Wheels. You know I can't resist it if I've got one in my collection. So this is the RS200 in the Real Riders edition. So she's got rubber tyres, separate wheels themselves, die-cast body and a die-cast chassis. And this is a really, really nice model. I got it some years ago. It's been in my collection for a little while, but it's absolutely fantastic. Absolutely love this car. I think it looks really smart. Okay, so let's get back to business. So this came from a time when we were in cardboard boxes and this cellophane wrapping, and when lights were something to shout about, as you can see. So the car number here is C432, and that is the back of the packet. Now obviously this car doesn't have all of those features, but you know, some of them did in the day, but this is how they came. So inside the packet we have the rather wonderful RS200. And it always made me laugh with this car because it's held in by what I can only describe as basically a woodworking screw. So very coarse thread, doesn't take much to come out. Also doesn't take very much to rip it through the cardboard if the car has a jolt, but you know, it is what it is. So here is the car, and oh, there's this spacer that goes underneath it. I forgot that was there. So here we have it, my very, very pretty RS200. Now in all honesty, I can't remember if this was the exact car I had, because they did a few of these in white and blue, but this is my favourite livery, and this certainly reminds me of the car that I had back in the day. Absolutely fantastic. Blue drivers, the only colours to have, I think. Absolutely love the colours on this car. They're really, really smart. I actually compare them to the Hot Wheels. They're actually remarkably similar in many respects. Hot Wheels did a halfway decent job on this car. They don't always get the colours right, but they did in this case. So, but there we are. So this is the car, obviously with a short can motor and spacers front and rear. And you'll see when we open this car up, there's some weird things going on. Also, there's some very weird wobbly front axle going on. And we've got incredibly large gaps on the front wheels and also the wibbly wobbly front axle. Now, some people think that four-wheel drive actually makes a difference, and it actually doesn't. I mean, I race rally in competition, and I've won some competitions in rally against four-wheel drive cars and with a four-wheel drive car and without a four-wheel drive car, and I've won classes in all classes, and there is no class for four-wheel drive. You can just choose to run four-wheel drive if you want to, and honestly it makes no difference whatsoever. But I have noticed on my S4 that is actually four-wheel drive, and the reason I've left four-wheel drive on my S4 is because that extra drag is in the drive system with the band. I do find it has better brakes, because obviously it's going to slow down quicker because you've got more drag. But so, I mean, brakes are useful on a rally car, they really are. But in terms of overall performance, you know, I can beat S4s on a two-wheel drive car, and they can beat me with their four-wheel drives. I don't honestly think it makes a lot of difference. But in this car, it certainly does hamper the performance because it's putting a lot of drag through an incredibly inefficient drivetrain. And this car really doesn't have an awful lot of get up and go in this configuration. So let's just whip the body off, and I'll show you what is going on under the body. And there we are. So we've got quite a thick plastic under tray which runs all the way to the front. So there's a lot of plastic in there, and obviously the interior is all plastic. There's no lightweight additions in there, it's all just solid plastic. It's got a fair bit of weight to it. I'll weigh it in a minute and we'll see what that comes to. But here is the chassis. Now obviously there are no rear lights, as the box might have implied, but there are none. And we do have a front pod, but look at the size of that chunk of plastic. That is a very, very large chunk of plastic, and also it's a single bulb in the middle, which is asthmatic to say the least. And when it glows through the front, which in turn comes through the front grilling. So not a lot of light really comes through those four lights in the front, but that is a hell of a chunk of plastic to get in the front of that car. So here is the wobbly front axle. Now you'll see later on when I actually put my 3D chassis onto the body, I've had a lot of problems with this mount because it's incredibly close to that front axle, and you might be able to see in the camera, but there's a little bit of shiny axle just here, and that is because this front axle is so close to that body mount it actually rubs, and that produces an awful lot of front end friction. So while I was trying to adjust that body post on the 3D printed chassis, it was a big job to try and clear that front axle. And one time I went 1 millimeter forwards, then I went 0.5 millimeter backwards, 0.75 mil forwards. I had to play with it to try and get it to just clear the body post, and I didn't actually get there in the end. I'll show you what I ended up having to do. But also my body seems to be a little bit wonky. Everything matches up down the body, but for some reason one side is a little bit different from the other, and I wonder if these bodies were actually made slightly out of wonk. So that distance there is absolutely spot on both sides, and so that distance there, and there, it's the same on both sides, but for some reason the whole thing just seems a little bit wonky, and I had to fight the dimensions a little bit, but I think I found a happy medium with a little bit of a tweak. I'll show you later on. But here we are. So here is the chassis, obviously, and we got this very strange system where nothing actually, it's just very odd. Look, I mean, that's just turns. We've got a big clunky old pinion down there. Yes, it's metal. No, it doesn't split, but it really isn't very efficient. We've got the gears in the back there, which seem to produce quite a lot of drag. We have plastic bearings, but they're a bit strange. They're kind of weirdly sort of stepped. I don't quite understand why. And those pulleys are not actually metal. They're actually part of the wheel, and they are actually plastic, but they do look quite metallic because they're chromed with the wheel. They do look a little bit metallic, but they're not actually. They're just straight up plastic. So, I mean, there's not a huge amount. The chassis is quite flexy as well. So, that, I mean, that might be good if it was on a properly mounted body. But I don't think it's helping us too much. It may even be hindering us on this body. But, you know, it is what it is. It's a car of its era. In its day, it was quick enough. Now it's it kind of lacks a little bit. Well, it lacks a lot, to be honest, but that's what we're dealing with. So let me show you all the parts that I've got to go in our new upgraded RS200. So when I announced this project, one of the things that people kept on asking for was a nice new long can motor. So we've got one of those at 20k. And we're going to be putting an inline 5.5mm 9-tooth slotted pinion gear onto that motor. These have come from my spares box, so I've added an extra one. They normally come as a pack of 2. And married to that, we're going to put a slotted crown gear and 27 tooth. Now I'm going to use a 27 tooth on this one because I personally find rally cars prefer a 27 tooth because of the braking. I actually find that the cars brake better on a smaller pinion. The acceleration isn't particularly compromised, especially with a 20k motor, but the braking does seem to be a lot better on a 27 tooth. And we got some decent bearings. So we've got these Pendle Slot Racing ABO1 bearings. They normally come in a pack of 2, but I've added them in this single pack for convenience. And again, straight out of my parts box, we've got 2 hardened steel axles. Don't know what brands they are, but they're hardened steel, so they'll be good enough. And a huge upgrade, we're going to be putting these PCS alloy wheels on, and these are the 8mm wide. So they're part number 32151308. Now, I want this car to move, so I'm going to fit it with these Pendle Slot Racing F15 tyres, and they RTO3, and I've won competitions on these tyres. They really do grip. Come on, you didn't think I was going to let a build slip by without using a Slotting Plus guide, did you? So, the first of my homegrown parts. Now, I did actually ask a famous slot car wheel manufacturer if they would make a flush-faced 5-spoke rally-inspired wheel, a little bit like the OZ wheels. And their answer was as firm no, because they already make a 5-spoke that's inset. And I thought to myself, well, that's a little bit of an unfortunate reply, because the inset 5-spoke wheel doesn't actually look anything like a front-facing 5-spoke wheel when it's on the car. So a little bit of a missed opportunity, I think, by that manufacturer. And if you know who you are, maybe you might want to consider adding this front-facing wheel to your collection one day, because these wheels really do look a lot different from the inset 5-spoke that's already made. Anyway, so these are the wheels that I'm actually selling on my website, and they are simply a resin cast, but I've actually 3D printed these ones in white and black for this particular build, because quite honestly, I can't be bothered to paint them, and a 3D printer probably prints those black parts better than I could paint them. So I've got a 3D printed set there for my build. On my website, I do the resin ones. If you want me to print you out a set of these ones, then ask me privately and I might do it as a special job for you. So those are the inserts that are going into my Pendle Slot alloy wheels. So one of the disadvantages with having to buy a second-hand Scalextric car on eBay is more often than not, the wing mirrors are missing. Now, I hate cars with missing wing mirrors. It's one of my bugbears. So whenever I can, I try and buy wing mirrors. But in the case of the RS200, they're not that easy to find. So I've designed these ones on my 3D printer, and they are a very good representation of what the car should have and what the original car actually has. So I'll be using these on my build. Now, a long time ago, Pendle Slot Racing gave me a set of wheel insert spacers, and I used them on a couple of jobs, and then I ran out of them, and I said, are you making any more? And they said, well, we haven't gotten round to it, to be honest with you. So I said, well, can I make them then? Because I would like to manufacture them myself. And they graciously said that I could do it. So with thanks to Pendle Slot, they've actually allowed me to make these inserts with my own name on them. So as you can see, I do them from 2.5 all the way up to 3.75 mil, and they simply snip off, and you can fit them in the wheel, and it spaces the front of the wheel insert to the correct distance that you want. And as you can see, they come as a pack of 3, so you got 4 per sprue if you like. So this would service 3 sets of wheels, and so with this one, as you can see, they're 2 different sets, and they're available on my website if you want to use those on any of your builds. It doesn't have to be this one. Let's be honest, you didn't come here for all that nonsense, you came here for these parts. So here is my 3D printed chassis for the RS200. I'm rather pleased with it. It comes out very, very well. It fits to the body really well, and as you can see, it's got all the usual attributes that you would expect to see on a chassis. There's nothing groundbreaking here. You've got a little bit of detail on there, you've got the exhaust pipe on the back, you've got the grilling that goes behind the vents on the back end there, and the front end fits very nicely as a bit of a step there. But you've also got a set of pulleys, one in each corner. As you can see, there's a little bit of a groove there. Now these are a little bit of a token gesture, to be honest. They do fit the axles. They're a really tight fit, so they should go on and stay on. They do fit in the wheels and within the spacings allowed, and they will actually work, and they do work, and there's enough clearance down inside your sills here, or your rockers, to be able to get the belt. So you can use those pulleys. Would I use them? I'm going to use them on this build. I'm going to show you them on the car, but I wouldn't personally bother. I would just run the car in 2-wheel drive. Honestly, you're going to get a lot more performance out of it, or at least a decent amount of performance, so I'm not really sure. But they are a bit of a token gesture, and where you have to support the print, there's a little bit of inset pieces just in there. There's a little bit of a notch here and there, so you just need to go around with a small file or a little knife and just sort of clean out that groove in there, just to make sure that you can get the belt to run nice and smoothly. Like I say, they're more there just to satisfy the guys that really want to put 4-wheel drive on this car. I'm not saying you can snip them off, fit them and forget them. You will need to just fettle them a little bit. There may be still, you can see on this one here, there's a little bit of material still left on there. It'll snap off easy enough, it'll clear up, but you just be aware that there's a little bit of work if you want to use those. And as you can see in the middle of the motor pod here, we got the spacers for your front guide, and they are 0.5, 0.75, 1 mil and 1.25 mil. We got my S logo in there for years and years time when nobody knows who made this chassis. It was me. So, and we got an undersized hole in the front there, so you'll need to ream that to suit your guide, and you might well have to adjust the height of the post here to get that to fit your guide of whatever flavour that you choose. So that is the 3D printed chassis. So then we move on to the vacuum formed interior, and as you can see, I've got all the detail in there. It's formed quite nicely, it's incredibly light. I've low profiled the drivers. You will need to use the original heads or grab a couple off of eBay or any heads you like. They're dirt cheap. And as you can see, I've actually turned it back to right-hand drive. So we have the steering wheel on this side, and then we have the paperwork on the other side. And that's come out very nicely. The grilling on the front there isn't really there at all. It's almost pretty smooth. You're not really going to see any huge detail there when it's painted, but it is there. And then we got the grilling across the front here. It's all there, and you've got a little lip in there for the glass to fit in. That's come out very, very nicely. And then we have the glass as well. And as you can see, I've transferred the B pillars onto the vac glass. I've also made the little grills, the louvers in the glass there. They're not holed, they're actually sealed on the other side. I guess if you were really brave, you could probably cut the holes in there. But the impression has come out incredibly well. And I'm very, very pleased with the way that you can actually see those grills through the glass. I think they've come out superbly well. See, the front glass there is very clean, and the side glass have all come out nice and clean. This area here will have to be painted before we assemble it, and I will show you how to cut those out and paint all the bits that you need to during this video. Okay, so these are all the parts we're going to use in our custom RS200 mega build. So let's clear this table and start bolting all these parts onto this chassis. Okay, so I'm not going to bore you with a full chassis build step by step because you've seen me do it a million times before, and to be honest, there's nothing really new going on with this chassis build. But I just want to show you a couple of things just in case you should encounter them. So you might find the odd little wisp of PLA on the bottom of your chassis, and that could simply be cut off with a knife. It's very, very simple and easy to do. So there's a little bit here, for example, you might want to chop that off. And there might be a little bit of flashing just still left around the bottom of the chassis. So there's a little tiny bit there, maybe take them away. And all it requires is just trimming it up with a nice sharp scalpel. It really is that simple. So the other thing to consider when you're using this chassis is how to chop off these sprues and the pieces that you need to remove off the chassis. Super simple. You just get a pair of side cutters, come into the side there and just snip it off. It really is that easy. And the same with those inner rings there, and if you want to, you can go around with your scalpel and just clean up the edge if you didn't get a cut as clean as you would like. Now, this is a standard chassis. This has come off the printer. This is as they come, but I'm a sentimental idiot, so I'm not going to use that one. I'm going to use this chassis here, and the reason why is because this is chassis number 5, and this is the first chassis to come off my printer in a state where I consider it to be of merchantable quality. So I'm going to use this because I'm a sentimental fool, and that's why all these parts have already been chopped off. So here is the pulley. As I said to you earlier on, you might find the odd little tiny bit of flash on the inside of that rib there that you might need to take off. So that's something to do as you go along, and as you can see, I've trimmed off all of these edges, all the edge pieces here, and all I've done is I've used my scalpel to just clean it up and produce myself a rather nice pulley. So with those little basic things explained, let's get all these nice new parts into this chassis and start building ourselves a racing car. And just like that, your chassis is finished, complete with four-wheel drive. Now obviously we've got to put the wheel inserts in and finish off the body, but that concludes the actual chassis. And as you can see, we've got our four-wheel drive system in, and the front wheels turn absolutely perfectly well. And as you saw, I actually used the front tyres off of the original Scalextric donor car that I had, because I wanted zero grip on the front. And obviously these F15 rear tyres are incredibly sticky, so we don't really want to put very good quality tyres on the front because they're not really doing much anyway. And if we put a bit of power to the chassis, absolutely fine. Everything works exactly as it should. So now we've got the chassis done, I think it's now time to turn our attentions to the interior. Okay, so let's start with cutting out the glass as the first stage in completing the body. I personally find cutting out glass the most difficult part of any build, because it's very difficult to work out where the cut line is around the edge. But I've already got one of these glasses here that I've already pre-cut out, so I know exactly where to cut. So basically, in essence, the glass will fit into the body just like that. And what we're looking for is to cut around the inside of that door mirror, so clearing it just a little bit. Also, we want a small return on the bottom of that glass there, so that that return can sit inside this little return on the front of the dashboard here. So it sits just like that, just tucked down inside. The side of the glass can be as long as you can get away with, that's not a problem. And you want to come to the bottom of the B pillar. On the first return of the B pillar, you want to come up level with the bottom of the rear glass as it just folds around and disappears inside the body. And it looks like that when it's actually inside the body shell. So it's coming just below the bottom of the window aperture there, runs in a nice straight line just inside the body there, and then runs all the way around the back of the body with a nice healthy little lip, but not too much. You only need to get past the body. So I've drawn a line on this particular glass here so you can see what it all looks like. And as you can see in the light, you can see just as that glass returns onto a piece of waste glass there, you want to cut just at that point. And when you finish that rear, what would be, I guess, a C pillar or wherever it would be, you want a straight line straight to the bottom of the B pillar, and then come down at that first return, straight across the bottom of the glass as deep as you like, and then up over your door mirror, and then there's that little lip around the front of the glass there, so you can drop down into the dashboard of the interior. And also there's a panel on the roof there. You don't have to cut that out, but what I do is cut that out so that I can put a little bit of silver foil tape on the inside, and I push the foil tape down on the inside, and that gives you a really good way of sticking the glass up inside the car, and then the interior will lock in and hold the glass in place. Now with regards to the interior, slightly simpler. You need to come around the very bottom of this rear lip, because that rear lip fits inside the lip that's right up inside that body. Might be a little bit difficult to show you here. Maybe I could show you with this blade. There's a lip just in there, and that is where the back of that interior slides into, and that is enough to lock the back end in, and the front end simply comes around. You notch it for these two clips, notch it around your body post, and it simply comes forward to cover up the air intake there. And here are the recesses to cut. So you want to go as close to the dashboard as you can, but not going into the dashboard, and exactly the same with that body post just there. So in this video now, I will do all this. I will show you it in detail so that you can actually see me cutting it, obviously in large lumpy steps, and then we'll paint this interior, paint our driver's heads, and then assemble it. On the topic of driver's heads, you might notice in this video, I'm not actually going to use the original driver's heads. I've taken some resin copies of some slightly different or slightly older Scalextric driver's heads, because I actually find these brimmed open face helmets to be a little bit more in keeping with rally, and a little bit more time correct or era correct, and they still drive with these types of helmets on, so I think these just look a little bit better. Okay, so let's crack on. Let's get all this bodywork into the body. We can fit the wheel inserts to the chassis, and then we can go and hit the track. So that is the body just about finished. As you can see, we got the drivers all painted in along with their red seat belts made from some sign writing vinyl pushed through and glued into place. They got their new half face helmets, which I think are a big improvement over the standard ones. We've also got the painted B pillars. They're painted in satin black on the outside, so they retain that nice satin sheen. The engine detail is coming through nice and strongly through that rear window, and those rear vents are very clearly defined. We've also got the door mirrors all in place, looking very good and very proportional. So the only thing that's really left now to finish this car is to fit the lighting kit. Now that has got a couple of little issues that I need to circumnavigate. As standard, this lighting pod will no longer fit into the chassis as intended, because these lugs that used to fit on the chassis are now in the way. Because we've lifted the chassis up or dropped the body down, whichever you prefer, means that these lugs no longer fit on the chassis. So we need to remove those and probably do a little bit of other trimming as well. Now, I've always found that having one LED or one bulb right in the middle of these clusters really doesn't work very well. So there's a little dimple in the plastic, or at least here there is. So I'm going to drill a hole just in that dimple and inset one LED in there, drill a dimple in this side and inset an LED in that side. Probably remove quite a lot of this plastic as well. And then I'm going to cover it all in silver foil tape, and we'll put that into the car as well. That will actually keep, the silver foil tape will keep all the light in, and having a bulb on each side will actually give half a chance for these main driving lights to actually come on. And for the rear lights, we're actually going to use these very small red LEDs. They're not the smallest ones I own, but they're certainly very, very small, and they'll actually go inside those holes just in there. Now those holes are probably for a bulb, but I think these are a little bit too, or these holes seem to be a little bit too small really for a bulb. I mean, there's an LED, yes it fits, but there's a reasonable amount sticking out the back, and I just think that these little tiny ones that will just fit nicer. They'll just go straight in that hole, a little bit of silver tape over the back of them, and they won't light bleed, and they'll be a lot more convenient. So let's pop these lights in this body, and then we can button her up and go and hit the track. Oops, a couple of things I forgot to mention before we carry on with the last leg of this build. Now, if you recall, I did say that I was having trouble centering the front wheels because my body was slightly in twist, or maybe the master mold was slightly in twist when they made these back in the day. I wasn't quite sure. All the measurements all worked out, but I was just having trouble getting that front wheel in position. The back one seemed okay, but the front was a little bit of a problem. When it was perfect in the arch on this side, it was a little bit backwards in this one. When it was forwards in this one, it was perfect in this one. And it was all a little bit weird. Now, I know the chassis is perfect because it's done on basically a CAD program. So those bearings are absolutely parallel. So it's definitely something weird going on with this body. And I think it was probably in the master mold from Scalextric. So the way I had to do it was I had to get that front wheel exactly where I was happy with it. It was a happy compromise between left and right to make sure the wheel looked good on both sides, and I got that position. But unfortunately it did mean that that front body post was in the way, as it is on the original chassis. So what I had to do was just scallop that front post just to clear that front axle, and I'm hoping that is coming up on camera. I've literally only taken away probably 0.5 millimeter of material right in front of that this ruler. So it's basically just here, just there, as if my finger was a red hot poker and I just pushed it into the plastic. That sort of shape, just a tiny little scallop on that front body post. It's almost nothing, and that will then clear your front axle. Now, the other thing that I forgot to mention was the weight of this body. Now I've got all the Lexan into it. So the actual weight of this body now is 16.4 grams, and that brings this body right in the realms of perfectly reasonable race car weight. 16.4 grams is a perfectly respectable weight for a performance car. So this should now be a much better handling car. So with that said, let's get this lighting kit in this body, then we can hit the track. So I'd like to thank the followers of my Facebook page for suggesting that I do this RS200, because although I actually had one in stock, although too scared to use it, I don't know how long it would have taken me to get round to actually building one. However, having done it, I am over the moon with the results. This car is fantastic. Now I know you're going to say, well Rob, you would say that, wouldn't you, because that's your own chassis. That's true, but it is genuinely a fantastic car. I've added no weight to this car, I've taken no weight out the body, I've added no pod, I've not even added any body flow into this chassis, and it's still absolutely fantastic. And mid 48 is exactly where all my other competition rally cars sit. I would take this car into any slot GB rally and not feel like I was on the back foot. It's fast, it's stable, it's reliable, it's predictable, it's got great top speed, it brakes like you wouldn't believe. It's just a fantastic car. I can't honestly say that there is no other car that I can think of in my recent slot car racing history that's any better than this particular rally car. I mean, things like that XJR9 from the last video, that's a phenomenal car. That's a different beast entirely. This is a rally car, so you can't really put them into the same class. But if you take this car in its class, or class similar to this body shape, it absolutely holds its own. It's so unbelievably predictable. I don't know quite what it is, and whether it's the wheelbase to height ratio, because she's not that wide. I haven't measured her, but she's about 55 mil, maybe 56. So that's not ideal for a really high performance saloon car. But it just handles so incredibly well. Those Pendle slot tyres have just got the right amount of balance. That's why I like to use them so much, because I find that they work really well. They're very, very balanced. They move a little bit. You don't want a car that's too tight on the track, because you want to let it just move around a little bit, because otherwise if it grips up too much, you'll find it will roll quite quickly. So you want a little bit of compliance to the back tyres, and some tyres that I've used, they've got too much grip, and as soon as it gets to a corner, it's all or nothing. But that's what I like about the F15 tyres. They just have that little bit of compliance, and you can just snake your way through some bends, and it suits rally cars beautifully. So I'm really, really happy with this car, and I hope you've enjoyed watching me make it, because I've really enjoyed pulling it together. And just having that chassis work so well, for me personally, that's the icing on the cake. And for any of you guys that want to buy this chassis, you'll also find the same thing as well if you want to put some nice quality components in it. Now, the only thing I did find with my car is that it does really need something to lock up that motor, because there's so much horsepower going through this chassis now, it tends to dislodge the motor. But there are 2 motor screws in the chassis, so you can pop them in. I personally just put a spot of super glue in there because I was being lazy, did the same job. Maybe later on when I look at this chassis again on my 3D sketch, I might make some slightly sharper hooks on the top so it clips in more firmly, but to be honest with you, it's not overly necessary. A couple of screws, drop of glue, either way works just as well. So I hope that you've really enjoyed this sort of content, and if you have, maybe you'll subscribe, and if you could hit the little bell button, that would be awesome. So until the next time, thank you very much.